The Serpent King Drakon, a creature of nightmare and legend, had made his home in the hollowed-out heart of a mountain. Vast and terrible, his obsidian scales gleamed in the molten glow of his lair. For generations he was an undisputed tyrant, his breath a scorching fire that carved the very stone around him. Armies had fallen, heroes had perished, and the villagers below lived in constant dread, offering desperate tributes of gold, and tragically their own kin to appease his endless hunger. Into this land of despair, a figure from the past returned. It was Lycaon, the shapeshifter, once an outcast, now their only hope. He walked back into the villages that had spat on him, that had cursed his name. Even now they met him with scorn. A monster cannot save us from another, they sneered. But Lycaon saw the terror that lay beneath their pride. He saw their gaunt faces, their hollow eyes, and despite their hatred, his heart ached for them. He knew what he had to do, and he knew he would do it alone. He ascended the fiery mountain, carrying no sword, wearing no armor. His only weapon was the strange, fluid nature of his own body. As he entered the colossal cavern, the very air grew heavy with menace. Drakon stirred, a sound like grinding continents. The great serpent unfurled, a living mountain of muscle and scale, and a tide of liquid fire rolled from his gaping maw. A wave of pure destruction aimed directly at the lone man. But Lycaon was no ordinary man. He did not try to block the flames or dodge them as a human would. Instead, he dissolved. His form became smoke and shadow, a phantom that drifted harmlessly through the inferno. The fire passed through him, finding nothing to burn. On the other side, he solidified, not as a man, but as a great eagle. With a piercing cry, he soared into the air, faster than any arrow, his sharp eyes fixed on his target. He darted past Drakon's snapping fangs, talons extended, striking at the serpent's vulnerable eyes. Drakon roared in fury and pain, thrashing wildly. The cavern shook with his rage. As the serpent's massive head swung around, Lycaon shifted again. He was no longer an eagle, but a powerful wolf, landing silently on the beast's back. While fire could not melt the obsidian scales, his powerful jaws and claws were another matter. He tore and ripped at the thick hide, finding purchase where no blade could, a relentless predator against a god of stone and fire. But the Serpent King was ancient and immensely powerful. For every form Lycaon took, Drakon had a counter. The eagle's speed was met with a whip-fast tail. The wolf's strength was met with an unbreakable body. Lycaon was fast. He was strong. He was cunning, but he was fighting a force of nature. Each transformation was a desperate gamble, and he knew that none of them alone could grant him victory. He was tiring, and the suffocating heat of the lair was draining his will. As exhaustion began to set in, as the serpent coiled for a final crushing blow, Lycaon's mind raced back to a distant memory. He heard the voice of the goddess Athena, her words echoing from a time before his exile. Your strength is not in being one thing, but the potential to be all. He had been fighting as a man, then a wolf, then an eagle, each a separate piece of himself. He had been holding back, clinging to distinct forms. He had to let go, and so he did. He relinquished control, not becoming man, nor wolf, nor eagle, but all of them at once, and none of them at all. His body became a vortex of pure potential, a swirling tempest of flesh and shadow, bone and sinew. It was a fluid, ever-changing battle form, adapting in One moment, a wing would deflect a strike. The next, a claw would tear at scale. Then a hardened fist would land a devastating blow. Blade, talon, fang, and wing fused into a single chaotic storm of combat. Drakon, for all his ancient power, was bewildered. How could he fight a storm? How could he counter an opponent with no fixed shape, no predictable pattern? The serpent struck at a shadow, only to be wounded by a limb that appeared from nowhere. He spat fire at a whirlwind that simply absorbed and redirected the force. For the first time in centuries, the Serpent King knew fear. He was fighting not a creature, but the very essence of change itself. Seeing his moment, Lycaon focused his entire being into a single, decisive strike. His arm elongated, morphing into a terrifying fusion of a sharpened spear and a monstrous talon. He lunged forward, a living projectile born from the heart of his storm form. With all his might, he drove the deadly appendage deep into Drakon's throat. A sound unlike any other erupted from the Serpent King. A gargantuan, gurgling roar that was both a cry of agony and the sound of the mountain itself breaking. The colossal body convulsed, toppling backward into the lake of magma from which it drew its power. The impact sent a shockwave through the peak, cracking its very heart. The fires that had burned for ages were extinguished in an instant, and then there was silence. The trial was over. Lycaon, the outcast, stood victorious, the savior of the people who had condemned him.